First contact in crisis. The Galactic Council's emergency beacon pulsed through the void of space, its desperate message echoing across thousands of light years. Supreme Chancellor Vexthor's crystalline appendages trembled as she addressed the assembled representatives of the unified systems. The massive chamber, usually alive with the gentle hum of diplomatic discourse, now crackled with tension. "The swarm advances," she announced, her voice modulator struggling to maintain composure. "The Centaurian arm has fallen. The Pleiadian defense network has collapsed. Our most advanced weaponry," she paused, mandibles clicking in distress, "proves useless against their adaptive shields." The assembled delegates erupted in panic. The swarm, a collective consciousness of biomechanical entities, had emerged from the dark space between galaxies 6 standard months ago. Since then, they had consumed everything in their path. Planets, stations, entire civilizations reduced to raw materials for their endless reproduction. In the chaos of the chamber, Admiral Zena K'tal of the Arcturian fleet rose from her hoverpod, her bioluminescent skin pulsing with determination. "There might be one option left," she said, her words cutting through the noise. "We've detected unusual activity from an unexplored sector of the galaxy. System Sol 3. The chamber fell silent. Sol 3 was listed in the Galactic Registry as a death world, a planet so hostile that most species considered it uninhabitable. Its extreme temperature variations, high gravity, and toxic oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere made it a place most spacefaring races avoided. Our long-range scans have detected artificial satellites, primitive space stations, and regular launches of chemical propulsion vessels," Kittel continued. "Despite the planet's hostile environment, it appears to harbor intelligent life that has evolved under conditions that mirror the swarm's preferred attack patterns." Chancellor Vexthor's sensor arrays swiveled toward the Admiral. "You suggest we seek help from primitives. Primitives who survive daily on a planet that would kill most of us within minutes," K'tal responded. "Our preliminary studies suggest these beings, they call themselves humans, have developed without any access to quantum threading or graviton manipulation. Yet they've managed to achieve space flight, global communication, and are on the verge of colonizing their system's 4th planet." The Council's chief xenobiologist, Dr. Eix, projected a holographic image of a human into the center of the chamber. The assembled delegates recoiled at the sight of the endoskeletal being, with its exposed dermis and bizarre bilateral symmetry. "These creatures," Dr. Eix explained, "have evolved remarkable adaptability. They can survive in temperatures ranging from their planet's polar regions to its equatorial deserts. They can recover from grievous injuries that would be fatal to most species. Most remarkably, they possess a unique problem-solving capability we've never encountered before." The images shifted to show humans in various environments, scaling frozen mountains, diving in pressurized suits to ocean depths, even living in the vacuum of space within their primitive stations. "While we've mastered the manipulation of fundamental forces," Dr. Eix continued, "humans have developed by overcoming their limitations through what they call innovation. They don't adapt their environment to suit them. They adapt themselves to suit any environment." Chancellor Vexthor's crystalline form sparkled with concern. "The risks of introducing an uncontacted species to galactic society are enormous. The cultural shock alone." She was interrupted by a massive tremor that shook the chamber. Emergency beacons flared to life as the holographic displays showed the impossible. A swarm fleet had breached the Council world's defensive perimeter. "We don't have time for traditional protocols," Admiral K'tal declared. "The swarm adapts to every weapon we deploy because they understand the fundamental principles behind them. But humans don't follow our rules. They've achieved space flight without inertial dampeners. They've developed global communication without quantum entanglement. They fight their wars without energy weapons." The chamber shuddered again. Through the transparent dome above, they could see the first signs of the swarm ships entering the atmosphere, massive, organic-looking vessels that seemed to devour the sky itself. We need their unpredictability, Catal pressed. We need their ability to find solutions where we see only impossibilities. We need their raw, primitive strength. Chancellor Vexthor raised all four of her appendages, the traditional gesture of absolute authority. Admiral Catal, you have the Council's emergency authorization. Make contact with these humans. Offer them whatever they require. But hurry. As the evacuation alarms began to sound and the delegates rushed to their ships, Catal's vessel was already plotting a course to Sol 3. The Admiral watched the coordinates lock in, her bioluminescence pulsing with both hope and trepidation. Humanity was about to receive its first visitors, and the galaxy's survival hung in the balance. As her ship prepared for the quantum leap, Catal couldn't help but wonder, would these Death World dwellers prove to be the saviors they desperately needed, or would their primitive nature doom them all? The fate of countless civilizations now rested on a species that had barely left its own planet, a species that had evolved on a world so harsh that merely surviving there had made them unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The human factor. General Sarah Chen stood at the window of the International Space Defense Command, her eyes fixed on the strange vessel that had appeared in lunar orbit just hours ago. 25 years of military service hadn't prepared her for this moment. First contact had arrived not with a message of peace, but with a desperate plea for help. The alien ship's holographic presentation still played in her mind. Images of entire worlds consumed by the biomechanical swarm, civilizations far more advanced than Earth's falling one by one. Yet somehow, these advanced beings thought humanity might be their last hope. Their request has been verified by every major space agency, Dr. James Okonjo reported, his tablet displaying a cascade of data. The quantum encryption they used is beyond anything we've ever seen, but the message itself is genuine. They need our help. Sarah turned to face the assembled emergency council. Representatives from every major nation sat around the table, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of the alien data feeds. They're asking us to fight an enemy that's already defeated civilizations thousands of years ahead of us, she stated. The real question is, why us? Admiral Zenek, Catal's hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. The alien's bioluminescent form cast dancing patterns across the walls. Because you think differently, she explained. Our civilizations evolved with access to quantum mechanics, gravitational manipulation, and faster-than-light travel. We built our societies around these principles. But you evolved without them. You're saying our primitive technology is an advantage? Russian Defense Minister Volkov asked, his skepticism evident. We're saying your adaptability is, Catal responded. The swarm defeats us because they understand the fundamental principles of our technology. They can counter any weapon we deploy because they know exactly how it works. But your solutions, they're unpredictable, innovative, sometimes seemingly impossible by our standards. Sarah watched as Catal displayed footage of the swarm's attacks. The biomechanical entities moved with terrifying efficiency, their ships morphing and adapting to counter every advanced weapon thrown at them. Yet something caught her eye. They're using standard tactical formations, she noted. Complex ones, but still following basic military doctrine. They're not just copying your technology. They're mimicking your strategies. Catal's bioluminescence pulsed with interest. Yes, they learn and adapt to everything they encounter. It's what makes them so devastating. A slow smile spread across Sarah's face. But they've never encountered human warfare, have they? We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves, developing countless different ways to wage war. Our military doctrine isn't based on advanced technology. It's based on centuries of fighting with whatever we had available. Dr. Okonjo's fingers flew across his tablet. General, I've been analyzing their shield technology. It's incredibly advanced, but it works on predictable principles. They create quantum fields that adapt to specific energy frequencies. Energy weapons, Sarah mused. But what about kinetic impacts? Good old-fashioned bullets and bombs. Catal's hologram flickered with confusion. Projectile weapons. but they're so primitive. The energy output is minimal compared to our plasma cannons. Exactly, Sarah replied. Your weapons are based on manipulating fundamental forces. Ours are based on physics so basic that there's no complex system to adapt to. You can't develop an immunity to being hit by a chunk of metal moving at supersonic speeds. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's greatest weakness, their technological inferiority, might actually be their greatest strength against this enemy. We'll need to modify our existing military hardware, Sarah continued, her tactical mind already racing. But not by making it more advanced. We need to strip it down, make it simpler. No fancy targeting systems for them to hack, no energy signatures for them to track. Minister Volkov leaned forward. You're suggesting we fight a spacefaring enemy with conventional weapons. I'm suggesting we fight them with everything we've got, in ways they've never seen before. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics, improvised weapons, all the brutal, messy, unpredictable ways humans have learned to fight over thousands of years of warfare. Kittle's hologram pulsed with renewed hope. Your species evolved on a death world, fighting for survival every step of the way. Perhaps that's exactly what we need. Warriors who learn to fight before they learn to fly. Sarah turned back to the window, watching as more alien ships began appearing in orbit. Contact every military force on Earth. Tell them to prepare their most basic weapons and their most unconventional tactics. We're about to teach an advanced enemy the meaning of primitive warfare. As the council chamber erupted into activity, Sarah couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. The aliens had come seeking humanity's help because they thought Earth's harsh conditions had made them strong. They were about to learn that it wasn't just Earth's environment that had shaped humanity. It was their own relentless drive to overcome, adapt, and survive by any means necessary. The swarm had never encountered a species that had spent its entire history fighting itself, developing countless ways to wage war with whatever tools were available. They had never faced an enemy that saw limitations as challenges rather than obstacles. They had never dealt with humans. Breaking point. The battle for Europa Base unfolded in eerie silence against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched from the command center as the first wave of swarm ships emerged from hyperspace, their organic metallic forms distorting the starfield behind them. All units, maintain radio silence, she ordered through the hardwired communication system. No wireless signals, no quantum entanglement, just copper wires running through the ice. Another primitive solution that had left their alien allies baffled. The swarm ships approached with the same tactical precision they'd shown in every previous engagement. Their formation was perfect, their approach vectored to intercept any possible escape route. They had learned from countless battles against the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. But they hadn't learned from humanity. They're within range, Maya's tactical officer reported. No sign they've detected our presence. Maya allowed herself a grim smile. The aliens had warned them that the swarm's sensors could detect any energy signature, any gravitational disturbance, any sign of advanced technology. But they couldn't detect what wasn't there. Launch the first wave, she ordered. Across Europa's icy surface, hundreds of simple mechanical catapults, powered by nothing more complex than springs and compressed gas, hurled their payloads into space. No rockets, no energy signatures, just basic Newtonian physics at work. The swarm ships didn't react until it was too late. Their adaptive shields, designed to counter energy weapons and gravitational attacks, offered no protection against clouds of ball bearings moving at orbital velocities. The simple metal spheres tore through their biomechanical hulls, causing devastating damage through sheer kinetic force. Second wave, Maya commanded, watching as the swarm ships began to break formation, their perfect tactical order disrupted by this unexpected form of attack. This time, the payloads were different. Canisters of liquid nitrogen, frozen solid in Europa's natural cold. As they shattered against the swarm ships' hulls, The extreme temperature difference caused catastrophic stress in their organic components. Ships began to split apart, their adaptive capabilities useless against basic thermodynamics. "They're adapting," the tactical officer warned. "New shield configurations detecting." "Good," Maya replied. "Right on schedule. Signal the Titan group." From the opposite side of Jupiter, humanity's primitive space fleet emerged. These weren't the sleek warships of their alien allies. They were bulky, ugly vessels that looked more like orbital construction platforms than military craft. But appearances were deceiving. "Railguns hot," the weapons officer reported. "Solutions locked." The human ships had been stripped of all advanced technology. No shield generators, no energy weapons, no quantum computers. Instead, they carried weapons based on the simplest principles of physics: electromagnetically accelerated projectiles, chemically powered missiles, and improvised weapons that would have been recognizable to soldiers from centuries past. The swarm ships turned to face this new threat, their adaptive shields reconfiguring to stop kinetic weapons. But that's exactly what Maya had been waiting for. "Now," she ordered, "hidden beneath Europa's ice, massive electromagnets suddenly activated." The metallic components that had been scattered through the battlefield by the first two waves of attacks became lethal shrapnel, ripping through the swarm ships from every direction. Their shields, configured to stop high-velocity impacts from a single direction, couldn't adapt quickly enough to the three-dimensional storm of debris. "They're breaking apart," the tactical officer reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "Their formation is collapsing." Maya keyed her comm to the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, execute Plant Thunder. Show them what humans do best." The human fleet attacked with organized chaos. No two ships using the same tactics. No standard formation. No predictable patterns. Some vessels launched swarms of miniature kinetic kill vehicles. Others deployed clouds of chaff that played havoc with the swarm's sensors. Several ships deliberately set themselves on collision courses, only to split apart at the last second, becoming clouds of weaponized debris. It was warfare stripped down to its most basic elements, guided by humanity's long history of finding ways to defeat supposedly superior forces. The swarm, for all its adaptive capability, couldn't counter an enemy that combined primitive weapons with unpredictable tactics. Multiple swarm ships attempting emergency jumps, the tactical officer reported. "They're retreating." For the first time since the swarm had emerged from dark space, they had been decisively defeated, not by superior technology or advanced weapons, but by humanity's unique approach to warfare, an approach born from millennia of fighting on their death world, where survival often meant using whatever weapons were available and finding ways to defeat stronger opponents through cunning and improvisation. As the remaining swarm ships fled the Jupiter system, Maya received a transmission from Admiral Call's flagship. "Incredible." The alien commander's voice crackled through the hardwired comm. "You turned their greatest strength, their ability to adapt to advanced technology, into a weakness. By forcing them to fight at the most basic level, you prevented them from using their superior capabilities." Maya watched as her crews began collecting the scattered debris for reuse in future battles. Nothing wasted, everything repurposed. Another lesson learned from humanity's long history of warfare. "We've just shown them that humanity doesn't need advanced technology to be dangerous," she replied. "The question is, how will they adapt to an enemy that relies on principles so fundamental that there's nothing complex to adapt to?" The battle for Europa had been won, but Maya knew this was just the beginning. The swarm would return, and they would try to adapt to humanity's tactics. But that was the thing about humans. They had spent their entire history adapting faster than their enemies could counter them. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth had produced such dangerous survivors. It wasn't just their planet's harsh conditions that had shaped humanity. It was their relentless drive to overcome any challenge, their ability to turn disadvantages into advantages, and their talent for finding ways to win even when victory seemed impossible. Unity forged in fire. The Galactic Council's emergency session chamber had changed dramatically in the 3 months since humanity joined the war. Gone were the ornate holographic displays and quantum interface systems. Instead, physical maps and tactical boards covered the walls, and representatives from a dozen species huddled around tables, strewn with paper diagrams and wooden models. Dr. X watched in fascination as General Chen demonstrated a new battle strategy using nothing more complex than wooden blocks and string. The xenobiologist had spent decades studying advanced civilizations, but nothing had prepared him for the innovative chaos that humans brought to warfare. The key is unpredictability, Sarah explained, moving the pieces across the makeshift tactical display. The swarm adapts to patterns, so we give them no patterns to adapt to. Admiral Catoll's bioluminescence pulsed with understanding. Her own tactical experts had already begun incorporating human strategic principles into their operations. Like your guerrilla warfare concept. Strike from unexpected angles, then disappear before they can respond. Exactly, Sarah nodded. But we need to take it further. Each battle needs to be unique. The moment they think they understand our tactics, we change them completely. The chamber's attention shifted as Dr. James Okonjo entered, accompanied by a team of alien engineers. The human scientists had been working closely with their allies, teaching them to think backwards, stripping away technological complexity rather than adding to it. We've completed the modifications to the Arcturian fleet, he announced. All quantum targeting systems removed, replaced with basic optical sights and manual calculations. The crews are adapting to the change. Several alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. The idea of removing advanced technology felt like regression to them, but the results couldn't be denied. Every fleet that adopted human principles of primitive warfare had proven far more effective against the swarm. There's more, James continued, spreading out a set of technical diagrams. We found a way to combine your graviton manipulators with simple mechanical principles. Imagine a slingshot that can bend space itself. The aliens gathered around the drawings, their initial skepticism giving way to curiosity as James explained the concept. It was quintessentially human, taking an advanced technology and finding a way to use it in the most basic, straightforward manner possible. The swarm won't expect it, Sarah added. They'll be looking for complex gravitational weapons, not for us to use their fundamental forces as a simple pushing mechanism. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication. A massive swarm fleet had been detected moving toward the Orion Arm, but something was different about this attack. They're not using their usual formation, Catoll observed, studying the reconnaissance data. They've adapted to our tactics. Sarah studied the approaching fleet's configuration. The swarm ships were arranged chaotically, mimicking the unpredictable patterns that human forces had used so effectively. They had learned. Good, she said, surprising the aliens. That's exactly what we wanted them to do. You wanted them to adapt to our new tactics. Dr. Eggs asked, his crystalline form shimmering with confusion. Of course, Sarah smiled. Because now they're fighting like us, and nobody knows better than humans how to counter human tactics. She turned to the assembled representatives. Your civilizations evolved with advanced technology, developing in a straight line toward ever more complex solutions. But humanity, we evolved fighting ourselves. Every tactical innovation was met with a counter-innovation. We've spent thousands of years learning how to defeat enemies who think like us. Understanding dawned in the chamber. The swarm's greatest strength, its ability to adapt and evolve, had been turned into a trap. By forcing them to adopt human warfare principles, humanity had drawn them into a form of combat they had mastered over millennia of internal conflict. Send word to all fleets, Sarah ordered. Operation Reversal begins now. The swarm thinks they've adapted to our way of fighting. Time to show them why that's exactly what we wanted. As the chamber burst into activity, Dr. X approached Sarah privately. You know, he said, when we first discovered your species, We thought your constant internal conflicts were a sign of primitiveness. Now I understand. You weren't just fighting wars. You were creating a library of tactical knowledge more valuable than all our advanced technology." Sarah watched as human and alien crews worked together, combining their different perspectives and strengths. "That's the real lesson here," she replied. "It's not about technology or tactics. It's about adaptation. Humans didn't just survive on a death world. We learned to thrive by constantly adapting, constantly finding new solutions. And now we're teaching the galaxy to do the same." The combined fleet began moving into position. Human ships flew alongside alien vessels, their crews working together in ways that would have seemed impossible months ago. They had found strength in their differences, wisdom in their varied approaches to problem solving. As the battle lines formed, Sarah felt a surge of pride. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not as conquerors or victims, but as teachers. They were showing the galaxy that true strength didn't come from technological advancement, but from the ability to adapt, to think differently, and to find victory in the most unexpected places. Dawn of a new era. The final battle against the swarm unfolded across the Orion Arm in ways that defied conventional space warfare. The enemy had adopted human-style tactics, spreading their forces in seemingly random patterns, using unpredictable attack vectors. But Sarah Chen had been counting on exactly this. All fleets, execute Protocol Omega, she commanded from the bridge of the Earth ship Resilience. The combined human-alien armada responded with what appeared to be complete chaos, but it was chaos with purpose. The Arcturian ships, stripped of their advanced targeting systems, launched salvos of simple kinetic weapons, not at the swarm vessels themselves, but at precise points in space around them. Meanwhile, the human fleet split into smaller groups, each one operating independently, using tactics that seemed to make no strategic. Admiral Call watched from her command ship as the battle unfolded. "They're not taking our bait," she noted, her bioluminescence pulsing with concern. "The swarm has learned too well from us." "No," Sarah replied through the comlink, a smile in her voice. "They've learned exactly as much as we wanted them to learn. Execute Phase 2. Suddenly, the seemingly random positions of the Allied fleet made sense. The scattered kinetic weapons, combined with the position ships, created a three-dimensional grid across the battlefield. As the swarm forces moved to exploit what they thought were gaps in the formation, they found themselves being herded into predetermined zones. "Now we show them humanity's greatest military innovation," Sarah announced. "Synchronized chaos." At her signal, every ship in the Allied fleet began moving in patterns that appeared random, but were actually precisely calculated. The debris field from the earlier bombardment, influenced by the gravitational weapons James had helped design, began to coalesce into deadly storms of shrapnel. The swarm ships, having adapted to human-style irregular warfare, tried to maintain their unpredictable patterns. But that's exactly what made them vulnerable. They had learned to fight like humans without understanding the underlying principles that made human tactics work, the intuitive grasp of chaos that came from evolving on a death world. "They copy our forms, but not our essence," Dr. X observed from his research station. "They don't understand that human unpredictability isn't truly random. It's instinctive." The battle reached its crescendo as the Allied fleet executed their final maneuver. The human ships deliberately placed themselves in seemingly vulnerable positions, while the alien vessels maintained their stripped-down, primitive weapon systems. The swarm, predictably, moved to exploit these apparent weaknesses. That's when Sarah revealed humanity's final lesson to the galaxy. All ships implement Operation Mirror. The Allied fleet suddenly shifted tactics completely, abandoning the irregular patterns they'd been using and snapping into perfect, geometric formations. The swarm, committed to their borrowed human tactics, couldn't adapt quickly enough to this sudden return to conventional warfare. "They've learned to think like us," Sarah explained as the trap closed. "But they haven't learned to stop thinking like us when necessary. Humans don't just know how to be unpredictable. We know when to be predictable." The result was devastating. Caught between their adopted irregular tactics and the Allies' sudden switch to conventional warfare, the swarm fleet began to break apart. Their adaptive abilities, which had made them nearly invincible against advanced technology, had become a weakness. They had evolved to match humanity's chaos, but couldn't handle humanity's order. Hours later, as the dust settled on what would become known as the Battle of Orion's Edge, the Allied commanders gathered on the Resilience's bridge. The swarm had been defeated, not destroyed, but driven back to the dark space from which they'd emerged. Their adaptive advantage turned against them. "You've changed everything," Kittel said to Sarah, her bioluminescence glowing with admiration. "Not just how we fight, but how we think." Dr. Higgs nodded in agreement. "We thought we needed humanity's primitive weapons to defeat the swarm, but what we really needed was humanity's perspective. Your ability to shift between chaos and order, between primitive and advanced, between individual action and unified purpose." Sarah looked out at the starfield, where human and alien ships now patrolled together. "That's what evolution on Earth taught us. It's not about being the strongest or most advanced. It's about being able to adapt, to change your approach when necessary, and to understand that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones." The victory marked more than just the end of the swarm threat. It represented a fundamental shift in galactic civilization. The advanced species had learned the value of simplicity from humans, while humanity had gained access to the stars. But more importantly, both had learned that true strength came not from technology or tactics alone, but from the ability to understand and integrate different approaches to solving problems. As the Allied fleet began its journey home, Sarah received a message from the Galactic Council. They were creating a new position, Strategic Integration Command, and they wanted a human to lead it. Not because humans had the most advanced technology or the most powerful weapons, but because they had something far more valuable: the wisdom to know when to use which approach. The stars seemed brighter somehow as the Resilience set course for Earth. Humanity had not only survived its trial by fire, but had helped forge a new understanding in the galaxy. They had shown that being advanced didn't always mean being complex, and that true strength lay not in technological superiority, but in the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to find the right solution for each challenge. The Death World had produced not just survivors, but teachers, and the galaxy would never be the same.